Billy here. I'm going to finish my series on love with Agape, the best kind. We covered, I'm on the Hebrew side. Let's go over to the Greek side. Can I say that? Okay. Eros, philo, and now Agape. And the Hebrew word was chesed. Oh, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm just a sinner. I'll have to ask Mr. Pigeon or somebody like that to show me how to pronounce the Hebrew word. Chesed. You gotta say it right, man. That impresses the hell out of people when you speak those Hebrew words like that. They know you're not playing, right? But anyway, I'm not here to talk to you about Hebrew pronunciations. I'm here to talk about God's love, sacrificial love, real love, true love, pure love. God is truth and God is love. So the two are kind of tied together that way, aren't they? The Logos, etched into the universe, woven into the warp and womb of the universe. The universe is made out of ether. It pervades everything. There's no such thing as a vacuum, and the ether contains God's instructions, the Logos, God's logic, truth, everything after its own kind. Now it can be corrupted, and there are various interdimensional entities which are trying very hard to corrupt it, and they want you to help them, and a lot of you are helping them. Well, not my followers, of course, not my subscribers, but people out there are helping them, and they seem to think they're doing the right thing, and there's a lot of ways that they get into that. What's the cure? Agape. Let's this is a definition of it here. I've got the Orthodox Study Bible. It's kind of like a King James-y sounding translation from, the Orthodox Bible, which is in originally Old Slavonic. They have Russian versions now, of course. But I had the passage written right down here. 1 Corinthians 13:4 through something. You can find it. 1 Corinthians 13:4. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. It is not puffed up. Does not behave rudely. Does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. It rejoices in the truth. That's important. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. I could go on, but that's enough. Let's unpack some of that, shall we? Different translations have different nuances in the English language about that. One of the ones I like is not easily provoked. It's not easily offended, some say. That's a good one. There's whole tribes of people running around out there. I'm talking about political tribes and cultural subcultures that want to demonstrate how they love people by being offended by everything. I dealt with one just a little while ago that didn't like somebody using the word retarded. I love language, man. Language has got to be free. And language is going to offend people, especially people that are looking for something to be offended by, and they are offended for other people that can't be offended on their own because they're smart enough not to be. They know where that's at. It's nowhere, man. Most retarded people aren't very easily offended. So there's people that take it upon themselves to be offended for them, and they think they're showing love that way by being offended. Right. Anyway, The original word for developmentally disabled people, they had medical terminology for them just 100 years ago. It was an idiot and imbecile and moron. Those were different stages. Idiot, I believe, was like arrested development around 2 years old. An imbecile would be about 7. And a moron would make it to 13. Now, morons can be a lot of fun, though. I know some morons. I run around with morons. Man, they're freaking great. And a lot of them are really, really earnest people. They got a lot of assets. There's a use for them in society. There's a place for them in a well-structured society, one that's based on love. But people use those terms to insult people that did something stupid. Right, that's natural. So they changed the words to special people or other euphemisms, and then people start using that for insults. So then they change it to something else. Ever see a dog chasing its tail? It's a fruitless endeavor. Being offended is a fruitless endeavor. Trying to swat things down because you want to control language. You don't want people using words that other people might be offended by. That's a fruitless endeavor. Just stop. Anyway, how did I get off on that? Well, I was talking about love. I was talking about what love is. It's not easily provoked. It's not easily offended. It's patient. It's kind. It's not rude. It's not arrogant. It doesn't, look at me, I love people. It's humble. It's quiet. It does a lot of it in secret. A lot of people really, really express great love in the world, and you'll never know about them. I don't know if you'll never know about them. You don't know about them in this life. They don't want you to. Oh, as I was saying, there's a lot of opportunities for having fake love. One of them I mentioned, of course, being offended all the time and being an activist for people that you imagine might be offended by something that aren't really worried about it themselves. This recent thing that we just went through, they had opportunities for people to show love and to show that they care about the elderly and the children and the frail and sick by going and letting big corporations experiment on them, because it's for the common good. It's for the greater good. I was told that by people that are dead set on going and doing it because, well, it's for the greater good. No, it's not. It's for the greater bad, actually, when you look into it. But they offer that so you can easily show your love and heroism. Yeah, you're heroes too by conforming to social pressure. Everybody knows that that's how heroes are made, and scolding other people. And you can show your love for your neighbors by dropping a dime on them, and turning them into social tracers and all the contact tracers and all that, but for violating corporate edicts and decrees that were illegal. You roll over on them. That's how you show love. So they get hauled off to the hoosegow and maybe have their kids taken away. Well, it's for the greater good, isn't it? There's all kinds of ways you can express your love that corporations will guide you into. And they're trying to do that in a number of ways. But you could recognize real love by this definition here. It doesn't seek its own interests. It's not easy. Well, sometimes it is, but often it's not. It's not easy. It requires some sacrifice. I see love just in common courtesy. That's becoming rare because we no longer live in a well-ordered society. It's been corrupted. Like many other things, it's been corrupted mainly by a mechanism called corporations. The media, the movies and shows people watch are always so radically pro-individualist, that people are offended by someone expecting them to have some manners and be polite. Well, those manners, those are all restrictions, right? Those are for the collective. What's communism? And you see it everywhere. People just don't have the manners they had. I think a lot of these people I interact with, especially young women, like the waitresses, it's about the only young women I ever interact with anymore. Occasionally, I go to a Waffle House just to break up the monotony, or when I'm in a hurry. And it's, I get called honey and sweetie and love by people I've never seen before. Their grandmothers had slapped their faces till they're hot for doing that. It's called being overly familiar with strangers. You don't do that. Well, what the hell is wrong with you? You know me? I'm kind of offended by it. I don't say anything usually. When being called sweetheart and honey and love by somebody that I don't know and probably wouldn't like if I did. And I've asked a few of them, whatever happened to sir? I'm a customer. You know, I'm paying for this, and I really don't like the overfamiliarity. And they got offended. Oh man, double down. Okay, honey. Yeah, show me some love. And I asked one time. One seemed like she was pretty reasonable. I says, "Come here, kitten." I said, "Listen, I want to ask you a question. Did they train you ladies to talk that way to people, to call the customer honey and love and sweetheart and darling?" She said, "Yeah, they do. That's part of their policy." Because they're trying to elicit this image of the tough old waffle waitress from back in the 60s. So they're going to start having them do beehive hairdos and the cat eye glasses and too much cologne and smacking gum and "What you want, honey?" Well, I don't remember them talking like that. Maybe in New Jersey, but I remember those waitresses in those little mom and pop diners that were open 24 hours out in the middle of nowhere, the Roadhouse. They still had some back in the early 80s. I frequented some. I worked down, I drove 300 miles to work every week to work down in Southern Illinois, and I stopped at a lot of those places that I knew about, and there's still a lot of those old birds around. And they didn't talk like that. They had much better manners. They weren't overly familiar with people. Anyway, manners are good. Manners express love. As a culture, you can express love by having manners, and different cultures have different manners, and different things are standard. But you know, I mean, throwing trash on the floor and spitting big ugly wads of tobacco down where everybody has to look at it and step around it, and leaving paper towels in the urinal, you know damn well somebody's going to have to pull them back out of there. What kind of person does stuff like that, for freaking crying out loud? And I see it everywhere, every day. I don't know, maybe factory workers are especially pigs, but it's just atrocious. They're not being very lovely, are they? They have other ways to express it. They can be loved vicariously by watching their shows, and they can express love by getting medical experiments done on them, and you know, rolling over on people and scolding people for not wanting to. Corporations are awful. I see love in craftsmanship. What happened to craftsmanship? There's such a market for making heirloom quality items just for the household, just personal items for the household that last generations. They used to make stuff like that. Now everything's made out of plastic that's specifically formulated to disintegrate in a couple of years. And there's little tricks, all these little tricks that they have. In my profession, I use markers, paint markers, metal markers, Sharpies, all kinds of markers. I've used them for years. There's a recent phenomenon now. All the ones you buy now used to be you pull the freaking cap off and you turn around and put it on the other end and it snaps firmly on there and it stays there, so you store your cap while you're using it, and then the cap's handy, put it back on. None of them they make do that now. Now you pull the cap off, you put it on top, it just lays there. It's real loose and it'll fall off. You know, you put it on there and you shake it and it falls off. It doesn't snap, it doesn't lock, it doesn't even fit tight. You don't think they did that on purpose? Why would they do that? So you'll lose the freaking cap, and then the mark will dry out and you have to buy more. It increases sales because they love you, man. Now they take pride in their work. Bean counters, engineers, corporate people. Somebody came up with that ingenious idea. Listen, why are we putting the cap where it snaps back on? You make it loose so it falls off and rolls under something. Then the marker drives out and they have to buy another one. Such a deal. That's how corporations think, because they're psychopaths. It's an excuse for nobody to be accountable morally for decisions. That's what a corporation is. And it's often as much as a way to hide from consequences legally as well. No personal accountability, and everybody's following policies. And now it's getting to the point where, you know, you're going to be following policies at the point of a gun. Cops have been enforcing ordinances and statutes for a long time with deadly force. It's not supposed to happen. Law maybe, but statutes and ordinances, those don't get passed by the legislature. And now they're enforcing corporate policies. Yeah. And illegal executive edicts, and illegal edicts by people that aren't even authorized to do it. They authorize themselves. Well, I have emergency powers because there's a crisis. There's no crisis. By your own criteria, there's no crisis. And if they issue edicts and cops go out and beat people and tase them and haul them off to the hoosgow. Now, welcome to tyranny, buddy. Because we love you. The antithesis of the church that is supposed to be the kingdom of God, that operates in love and agape, the antithesis to the corporation. You got to know your enemies. It's not the commies. it's not the socialists. It's not the Chi-Coms. It's your corporations, and they're everywhere. There's factions in China that are in on this. There's factions in Russia that are in on it, and there is factions that are opposed to it, that are fighting it. But I don't see anything effective going on in this country. Oh, you got Q, right? Now we'll see. Does Q love people? Got you solving riddles, and he could have you organizing. Could be giving you real basic instructions on how to take care of yourself and organize. They've got a big following, got a lot of loyal people, but they're not giving them instructions. They're telling them to wait for the white hats to come and save them and trust the plan. Yeah, there's something fugazi about that, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Hope I am. I know some real smart people that are Q-tards. Oh, I did it again. Please don't be offended. I love language, man. I'm having a blast. Does that offend anyone? I love people. Anyway, where am I going with all this? Craftsmanship. I would make a marker. I could make a marker. It's just not my calling. I could do a lot of things like that. Start manufacturing them. I mean, they'd be a work of art. They would be absolutely indestructible. They'd be comfortable, and it'd probably have a little port where you could open it up and pour any kind of, you know, commonly found ink in it, and your great grandchildren will inherit it if you don't lose it. And you probably won't, because it's going to be really expensive. But the cap won't fall off, and you'll get more than a couple of marks out of it before you lose the cap, and it's no good next time you need it. Those things are kind of pricey too for something you can only use a few times. Everything's like that. Everything. In manufacturing, I used to study these books that they came out with in the 1880s, 1890s especially. 1900 through the aughts and teens up into the 20s. They were making books telling you how to start your own factory manufacturing something. It had all the information you needed for building the furnaces, the metallurgy, getting the mixtures right, what kind of fuel to use, how to design your foundry. and people, that's when their big industrial boom happened. They didn't have banks supporting them all the time. They'd start real small and then build it on their own profits. How come you can't do that now? Oh, it's impossible. It's impossible. Because you're competing with huge corporations that when they bring new money, when the U.S. government brings new money into the market from the feds, tell them, okay, quantitative easing time, let's put down 10 more trillion. That money goes to favored corporations, in case you didn't know it. And they charge them interest too, like 0.1% or something like that. If you have access to billions of dollars at low interest and you can't make money, you're the biggest idiot on the planet. And some of them do. Some of them actually lose, but then that's okay. The government bails them out with tax money. Such a deal. And that's our enemy. That's the antithesis of love. That's the people that are fighting love. That's the people that start all the memes. Love is love. Yeah. Fudge packing and pillow biting and canyon yodeling and all that kind of stuff. That's what love is to them, because it's real marketable to some people, and it makes them weak and dependent. Real love makes you strong as hell and helps you organize. People are on the same page. They know what to do without even speaking it. Corporations don't like that very much. They can't quantify it either. They don't like things they can't quantify. These factories I work at, I can remember, say you got a hot stamping plant, and there's 20 machines in a row. 30 years ago, each machine had a captain. That's his machine. He knew every bit about that thing. He could walk around it and just listen and know what needs to be done next week. He can tell bearings are getting a little dicey. He can tell this is getting a little weak. He knows by the sound and the feel of it what's going on with it. And he has his apprentices handle it, and they learn over the years. It's the old captain of the ship. And he keeps it nice and tight, keeps it clean, got craftsmanship, got pride in his work. You don't see that anymore. Now it's all managed from the office with computers and programs, and they can have anybody go run it. A lot of this technologies try to make stuff idiot-proof. They can't. And where they could get a single mother from the ghetto, or somebody that's never had a job before from the ghetto, or somebody that's a Mexican peasant that's illiterate, or an Afghan refugee, or a gay guy from the village that's never worked with his hands before. They get them in there and put them on those machines because they're idiot proof. They got electronic barriers to keep them from sticking their little hands in things, and they're run from the office pretty much by computer programs. It's a disaster, because I was hired to go into these places and put out fires basically and try to keep things going, because it doesn't work that well. But it's ideologically driven. They had to get rid of these old bastards because they had too much power over them, and they couldn't quantify what they did. You can't quantify craftsmanship, just like you can't quantify other forms of love. They don't like some guy that can walk around and tell by the sound what needs to be happening. No, they want sensors that detect vibrations. They want sensors that detect heat, even though there's no context for it. I've had to record and put this stuff in sometimes. What are you putting the sensor here to tell you the bearing's hot for? It's next to a furnace! There's no context for this. They don't want to hear that. They just want data, 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 data. Yada, 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 data, data, data. They want lots of data. It doesn't matter if there's no context. The program does it all. And they have people changing out good bearings. And they have a program for doing stuff according to a schedule instead of whether it needs it. And it didn't work out that well, I can tell you. They don't like craftsmanship. They don't like personal relations. They want to control everything. That's what Facebook's for. Facebook's gathering the data to classify you in a personality group and to make an artificial avatar of you that they learn how to manipulate, and they learn how to distract, to keep you from getting into real relationships. Not that your Facebook friends aren't real. I mean, there's that too, but it takes a special kind of people to communicate the reality through them, what this thing is. And it's getting worse and it's getting harder, and there'll come a time when it's futile. Anyway, there's a difference between a sixth generation winemaker in his family vineyard that's grandfather taught him and his father taught him everything he knows, and he lives and breathes in it. That's his calling, and he makes great wine, and he put their name on it and put it in a nice elegant bottle with the family name and the family crest on it. They've been doing it for centuries. There's places like that still do it. There's that, and then there's the commercial stuff that's made with shortcuts and chemicals, and they usually put really snarky names on the bottles. Like, I won't buy anything with names like that, like Barefoot Demon Goddess. You know, what the hell are you thinking? There's always something to do with nakedness and sex and death that they put on their labels as their names for craft beers and for wines. I don't care if it somehow managed to be the best thing in the world and better than anything ever and restores your health and is a good price. I'm not going to buy it if it's got a name like that, because I don't want to encourage that kind of shit. But a lot of people buy it because of the name. Go figure. You don't support craftsmen, you don't support art, craftsmanship, elegance. You support stupid crap like that? Really? Well, okay. Go ahead and build your world, I'll build mine. Old folks' homes. Because we love elderly people, right? You ever been in one? My brother was in one. It was horrifying. I didn't get to visit him very much. Just when I was passing through, going in and out of the country, I'd stop in, and every time it was awful. His fingernails would be this freaking long, and he'd be dirty, and his clothes would be all crooked, and he'd have food all over him. They had it on this chart. He can't feed himself. They have to feed him. I went there at lunchtime. Every time I went and visited, I made sure and made it a point to go there either breakfast or lunch. I'd go in there, and they'd have him wheeled up to a chair, and they'd be studiously ignoring him. He's spilling stuff all over himself. There's a nursey over here with a broom, and she's sweeping a little 2-foot square area in the corner of the place, turned away from everybody. And I watched her for, I think it was like 12 minutes. She's sweeping a 2-foot square area. She's trying to act busy without looking at anybody, you know, so she doesn't see something important to do. And she wasn't the only one. They were all doing that. They'd walk past the old people and they'd be looking at the wall. They wouldn't look here to see if there's something that needed to be done. They'd be looking at the wall so they'd make sure they wouldn't see anything. Well, my nephew is personal friends with the guy that did the investigations on places in the particular state. And, you know, I'd tell him what was going on. And we got him railed up a couple of times. Didn't do any good, though. Next time we went back, the same shit be happening. They have hirelings working there. They're just putting in their time to get their money, and they're worried about their cable bill and their shows. Hospitals and care of the elderly and the orphans and widows is originally something the church did. And they didn't do it for money. They did it out of duty, and they did it because it needed to be done. They did it out of love for these people and for God. If you love God, you're going to take care of his people that need it. What's that parable? It said, love thy neighbor as thyself. And somebody said, some Weisenheimer said, well, who's my neighbor? I want to know who. I don't want to just go around indiscriminately helping people. Who is it that I'm supposed to help? I want to be efficient, you know. And so he told a parable A traveler was waylaid and left in the ditch. Somebody that didn't even know him, some person that wasn't even a proper Jew, wasn't one of God's chosen people, helped him. A Samaritan, the Good Samaritan, that's the parable. I'm going from memory here. You know it, you can look it up if you want to, make sure and get it right. But the message is simple. He helped him because he needed help. That was his neighbor. He didn't live next door to him. He didn't even live in the same village. He wasn't even from the same tribe or ethnicity. He helped him because he needed it. Somebody needs it, it's your neighbor. That's what he was saying. It's real simple. Somebody needs it. I mean, needs it, not, you want to go around enabling people. But somebody needs it, that's your neighbor. How do we find these people? Yeah, you know some. You got to be kind of sensitive about it. Anyway, let's see, what was I talking about? Oh, craftsmanship, something like that. On the receiving end, there's differences too, really. I mean, there's connoisseurs who really appreciate the craftsmanship that went into making these wines, and they can tell by the smell and the taste what kind of season it was, how the grapes were handled. I mean, there's people that do that. They know their stuff. It takes a little self-sacrifice. It takes a little knowledge. They're amateurs. The true sense of the word amateur is somebody who loves to do this thing and studies it and gives themselves to it. They understand the Tao of the craft. Not necessarily a winemaker, could be a connoisseur. And then there's wine heads. It doesn't matter if they've got some 2002 Syrah or from the finest vineyard in France, or if they got a bottle of Mad Dog 2020 or Thunderbird. It doesn't matter to them. It's totally indiscriminate. One's the same as the others. They just want to get drunk. It's the difference between a wino and a connoisseur. What kind of culture are we building? What kind of life are you building? Connoisseurs appreciate things and they understand things. It's a beautiful thing. The imperfect materials are used to create, in cooperation with God, using His logic and His taste, His logos, given through your own personality, filtered through your own lenses, to create something freaking beautiful, man, because that's craftsmanship. And it can be an abstract thing as well, a lot of material, a lot of sculpture. It could be a wine, it could be a mechanical thing. It could also be an organizational thing, helping people. You like gardening? Huh? Old people like gardening too, most of them do. What do they do in old folks' homes to amuse them? They wheel a television in front of them. Yeah, that one of my brothers at, there's televisions in every corner and they're all blasting at like 90 decibels. The stupidest, most insipid crap that they have on television all day long. My God, I don't want to be put in a place like that. That would be the most horrible torture for me. It's hell. My definition of hell would be surrounded by unceasing media blaring at me all the time. I can't even stand the cadence of it. I can't even stand... When I was in Afghanistan, there was a guy in a tent next to ours that turned his television up real loud so he could sleep. There's people like that. They got to have the television booming in their face so they can sleep. And I could hear it. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could hear... Can't hear the words, but it still drove me crazy just listening to this shit. I couldn't sleep and I couldn't stand it. And you're not supposed to do that, but nobody do anything about it. And I go over there and look at him, study him. I several times I just go turn it off, but he'd wake up and turn it back on. So he had his bunk. He had bunk beds, military bunk beds, and he's in the top one. His shit on the bottom one, and headed up against the wall, and the TV's against the other wall. boy, that was a mistake, because one night I went over there to that wall and I estimated it as exactly where the crossbar on his bunk was, and I ran into it and kicked it hard as I could, and I felt hard to go over and into his TV set. I don't feel bad about it at all. I feel spotless as a lamb. Maybe it taught him something. You know, actions have consequences in a well thought out, ideal society. Is that fascist? Radical individualism is its own tyranny as well. Everybody can do whatever they want. Throw paper towels in the urinal, spit old wads of tobacco everywhere. Yeah, like that. There has to be some manners. There has to be some controls. See, England was the most mannerly place, and you can see it in old film and footage and even movies. Even the poorest, most uneducated people were quite polite 100 years ago. And look at them now. You ever seen people swinging from a lamppost? I have. Or was it Newcastle? Newcastle every night. You got to shove your way through the crowd. There's all these chavs out there yelling and screaming and fighting and literally swinging from the lampposts, just making beasts of themselves on weeknights, much less weekends. Every night of the week they're all mobbing the street and the clubs. At least they were back when I was there. But how'd I get into that? Where was I? Yeah, it takes some discipline and it takes some knowledge to do things and to appreciate things. And we've lost a lot of that. It can come back. It'll have to. It's inevitable. It will. In the meantime, we do what we can. Oh yeah, old folks' homes and gardening. That's where I was going. I'm sorry, I get sidetracked. Wouldn't it be great? What do they have these people do in the old folks' home besides television? Oh, they have them do projects. My brother didn't participate in that stuff. He thought it was insipid. And I think a lot of them do. A lot of them think it's insipid. They treat them like freaking 2-year-olds. This is below kindergarten level stuff. They have them do projects where you make a birdhouse out of an old bottle. And they have instructions, and people come dressed as clowns and show them. I guess they intentionally dress as clowns, or maybe they just are really actual clowns. I don't know. Is there a clown ethnicity? I don't know. There's these people that are having them do projects and crafts. I suppose they're good people with good intentions, maybe. I don't know. They're being paid. But isn't that insulting to the dignity of these people? They have dignity. You go and treat them like 2-year-olds for. These are elders. These are people that you should treat with respect and listen to, and don't give them little busy work things to do. Oh, maybe it's good therapy, but at least have something dignified. Why not a garden? It could be a greenhouse. It could be indoors. It wouldn't be that difficult or expensive, and you could feed them from it as well, which would be a lot more healthy than the shit that they give them to eat. Raised bed gardens, if they're designed right, you could wheel up a wheelchair to it, and they could have their little plot, and they could do what they can, and they could have their own plants that they could take care of. Yeah, they could take the seeds out of their mouth and plant them. When you have a seed in your mouth and it soaks up a little of your hormones and stuff, that plant's for you. That plant will absorb the minerals that you need. Did you know that there's a relationship? There can be a symbiotic relationship between a gardener and his plants, the eater and the plant. There's all kinds of stuff like that. You need to look into it. It's really fascinating. And there's science behind it too, but it's not recognized by academics. Gee, wonder why. Could be Monsanto, I don't know. Gardening's good for old people. It's better than making stupid crap out of egg cartons. I saw a guy talking about that. He was in a home for a while, and he was back out of it. Somebody was taking care of him and his family. But he liked tinkering with mechanical stuff, and he had a garage full of crazy stuff. He was nuts. He was, you might have heard of him. He was the original Michigan Madman before Nugent co-opted that title. This guy, I don't remember his real name, Cooper? Is it Tom Cooper? I don't remember. But he was a nut, man. He was an exhibition drag racer back in the 60s or 50s and 60s and 70s. And he built contraptions that you'd have to be freaking nuts to drive. You know, well, it's a calculated risk. I do stuff that's calculated risk. This guy, he knew what he could do. He knew what he was capable of, and he did it, and he got paid for it. But he had these jet turbine engines sitting in his garage when he's old, and he had somebody drag one out, and he did a little video where he showed the project they have him made in the in the nursing home. And he set it down. He didn't say anything. He didn't make a comment on it. He just said what they had him do. Made this little bird feeder thing or something. And he smiles and he reaches down and he touches off that engine, and there's noise and smoke and thrust everywhere. It's a freaking monster. He's holding it with his foot. He's holding it down. And he picks up that project and drops it in front of it, and it melts and disintegrates. And he got a little joy out of that. You don't want to offend people's dignity. There's some of these people that have accomplished great things. There are men of genius that are sitting in nursing homes and they're having to make projects out of, you know, egg cartons and bottles. You need to find a way to give them their dignity back. Well, they've always got their dignity. You have to find a way to respect their dignity. Gardening would be a good way. Gardening and old people. Is anybody doing that? I bet somebody is somewhere. I have to look into that. This is a great idea. I'm sure somebody's doing it, and people want to do it. You don't need government funding. You don't need to form a 501c3 and do all the paperwork or everything, right? And so the government corporations can come in and dictate to you how to do it. Screw those people. Do what needs to be done. Tell them to go to hell. That's taking back America. I think it has something to do with love too. Let's see. What did that say? There's something. Is there something I'm missing here? Huh? Love suffers in its kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. Does not puffed up. Does not behave rudely. Does not seek its own. Does not provoke. Thinks no evil. Does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Well, I think we're on to something here. Okay. I might do some more on this. This is pretty good. Love is an ideology. Really. That's what Christianity is. Christianity built the modern, well, not the modern, the Western world before it went haywire, before it went horribly wrong. And it didn't go horribly wrong as a result of the Christian doctrine either. It was corrupted over a period of the last at least couple hundred years. I think we're in the last season, really, the little season. The way things add up, here's 1,000 years of history missing. I think the church age was way bigger and way better than you might think. And the whole world wasn't Christian either. Some people chose not to be. And they were afforded their own place. Do your own thing in your own time. That's okay. You and God, it's between you and Him. But in Christendom, there was love. Look at the architecture. Look at the Hagia Sophia. Look at some of these cathedrals. Those weren't built by corporations. Those weren't even built by engineers. Not in the sense that we have now. This wasn't built with mere logic and numbers. They were built with intuition. A bunch of godly people that loved each other, loved their community, and loved God, shared their logic and put things together. I think a lot of it came together as it went up, because that's how things work. Things like that work. They want you to think that you have to plan everything right down to the last inch before you start. It doesn't work that way. Never works that way. You're going to miss stuff. It's not going to work out. You get started and you go line upon line, precept upon precept, and build, and you get new ideas and you find new ways to do things, and you say, this won't work, but if we did it this way, if we put this buttress against here, and then we could go this high. I think that's the way they took shape. And they all expressed a local culture. And they were all over the world too. I mean, it wasn't just in Europe. These European type buildings, Romanesque buildings, are all over the world. And it's funny, a lot of them, if you look at the Tartaria stuff, you see a lot of glimpses of it. I think people really don't know what they're looking at, but they changed the numbers. There were buildings on the pediment that said like 624, and they rebuilt it after World War II. It says 1624. 815, after the war it was 1815. Or they had a J and then a 3-digit number. That J was changed to a 1. A lot of the documents have J's. Yeah, look that up. That's some interesting stuff. We've been lied to. Everything's been corrupted. We've been hosed. There's been resets. They want to have another one and make it even worse, the final worse. Are we going to go into it? How far are we going to go into it before God gets done tearing his hair out and stamping around his throne and comes and does something? Yeah, it's a pretty awesome thing to incur the wrath of God. And these people are doing it. They want to alter the DNA and everything. They want to corrupt it so that they own it and they can be God. They can turn a beautiful world where one seed can bring forth thousands of, it can replicate itself thousands of times in just one generation. There's some seeds that do that. There's some plants that will bear thousands of seeds. That's pretty generous. And God put that here for us. They want to patent it and not let you touch it without their permission, without paying them. And we're letting them. They want to alter your DNA and change you to where you can't argue with them. And you're letting them, you're helping them do the experiments. And you brave police officers and soldiers, that think that you're defending us, you're helping them. You're helping the project. Yeah, you gotta have a little knowledge and a little discipline to figure out what love is and what it's not. Don't go for that corporate love, because it's poison. And you're gonna do some horrifying things for the wrong reasons. Stick to this definition. Is it easily offended? Is it puffed up? Does it require killing people indiscriminately? They haven't done anything to you? I love my country. Yeah, sure you do. Thanks for your service, asshole. I'm not impressed. I only want the truth. I want love. I want it. The real thing, agape. Don't settle for substitutes. Anyway, this is getting long. It's going to take all night to upload. I'll be lucky if I can get it uploaded, but I'll try to get to you as fast as I can because Uncle Billy loves you. I don't get paid for this. I got a day job. I don't have anything better to do. I enjoy it. I wish I was more of a craftsman, but I do what I can. I'm more of a hands-on mechanical kind of guy. I don't do this abstract stuff. Oh well. Uncle Billy signing out. Love one another.